Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Cat's Whiskers podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron Lord.
Hello, Jono.
And also from A View from the Bridge, Neil the Coach Russell.
Evening, Jono. Evening, Aaron.
Well, the reason we put this together very quickly is, as many may have seen, from Sunday night's game between Nottingham Panthers and the Belfast Giants, an incident at 10:43 in the third period where Cody Brookwell of the Giants was given a game misconduct for spearing. Robert Farmer also given 2+2+2+ game for leaving the bench. However, footage has come to light today which shows Colby Cohen actually aiming a kick at Cody Brookwell, which probably started off the whole incident. Now, guys, most of us wasn't even aware that this happened. It's sort of come out today. So, quickly, what was your opinion when you first saw it, Coach?
Well, I was actually doing some of the live tweeting for A View from the Bridge in that period, and I think I tweeted out something. I should have actually reviewed it and gone back and looked at it before coming on the show tonight. But I think at the time I wrote something along the lines of Cody Brookwell goes berserk. Something must have angered him, something along those lines, because I can absolutely rest assure you, I've watched this guy now for 2 seasons, and Cody Brookwell, to get him angered, it's the first time that we've seen it in a Belfast Giants uniform, let's put it like that. I mean, this season probably a lot more so than last season. Fans have been crying out for him to be that. Let's see Cody Brookwell angry. Let's see the big guy, getting stuck into people and all the rest. And for me, I thought something has happened here. And then, in fairness, quite a few of the Panthers fans who noticed the tweet came back and said, "Are you kidding me? Did you not see the spear? Did you not see the spear?" So, from our vantage point over in the away block, right at the back, it was obviously very difficult to see that with the scrum that materialised. But I think we all kind of got the impression come the end of the game that I think Cody was going to be in a spot of bother. But as you quite rightly say, it's only really until today that we've noticed the kick from Colby Cohen onto Brookwell's shin/knee.
Aaron, what was your first thoughts when you sort of realised what had happened?
Well, on the night, I obviously, in the ruckus that it was and where I sit in block 15, it was very hard to see that. So I didn't see Colby Cohen aim that kick, but then obviously looking at the highlights, it's pretty damning evidence, really, and it's not nice to see, because you don't want to see that on a hockey rink. So you can kind of understand why the reaction that Cody Brookwell gave is kind of, not justified at all, because spearing is never needed in ice hockey, but it kind of brings a different angle on it, doesn't it?
I mean, from my point of view, as a lot of people know, I used to play rec hockey, and kicking out was a big no-no. It was frowned upon, and I believe in rec hockey it carries something like a season ban, maybe even a lifetime ban, because it is deemed as that serious. Now, from the footage, Colby Cohen quite clearly aims his skate at Cody Brookwell's legs. I'm trying to sort of think what Dops might do here, because I'm pretty sure that Dops will be reviewing this, and I'd be very surprised if there was no bans came out from it. So what do you think is more serious, the initial kick or the spearing that followed, or are they both as bad as each other?
I think you guys certainly will know me long enough to know that I try and call things as fairly. Obviously, I'm a Belfast guy. I've supported the Belfast Giants for 15 years. I always try, if one of my players or one of the players does something silly, isn't playing well, I will be on top of that person just as quickly as I'll be on top of them to praise them as well. What I would say on the back of this, and from what I've seen, Colby Cohen's action in terms of throwing the blade of the skate at an opposition player's leg, shin, or top of the shin/knee, is an incredible. I know there's padding and all that type of stuff, but Jono, it is a very dangerous thing to do. And as you say, it's almost that unwritten rule, that kind of breaking the, I don't know, not the code, but you know what I'm saying. It's unsportsmanlike conduct. Let's put it like that. It's going that step too far. Now, I think I've watched that loop, that vine, backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. What I noticed initially was Colby Cohen obviously going with the blade of a skate at Cody's leg. Cody's first slash is at the offending leg from Cohen. He then follows it up with a spear in what looks to be the midriff of Colby Cohen, which is totally wrong. Totally wrong. So I think in answer to your question, personally speaking, I think Colby Cohen's actions is what has led to Cody Brookwell doing what he was doing, which is also inexcusable. But for me, Cohen would be getting the extra couple of games as opposed to Cody Brookwell.
Aaron?
It's quite hard to argue with that, to be honest, because if the initial kind of kick out from Cohen doesn't take place, then you probably won't have the reaction from Cody Brookwell. So, I mean, I've not played rec hockey or anything, so but at the end of the day, it doesn't take common sense to know that you don't use a blade against an opponent. That's just a no-no. So I would think that both will be in trouble. But I kind of agree with Coach where we will probably be looking at Colby Cohen receiving the larger ban.
And what a miss that, I know we're here to talk specifically about this, but what a miss Colby Cohen will be for you guys. I mean, I said it on Sunday at our Bunkers Hill event. I wasn't impressed in those games that I covered for Premier at the start of the season with the Champions Hockey League game. Colby Cohen was one of the guys that I was not overly impressed with in that campaign for you guys. But my goodness, since he's come back, I've seen him at the Odyssey and I saw him twice at the NIC. If you miss him for maybe 3 or 4 games, he'll be a big hole, especially for you guys if he's banned for this weekend, heading into Sheffield and what have you.
I tell you what, Coach, doing this now, obviously it's very quick after seeing the highlights again and just double checking it, like you said you've watched it on loop. It's more of a disappoint. I'm sat here now talking about it, disappointed.
I mean, I am. I'm disappointed in his actions. However, as anything that happens on an ice rink, and as we know, it's very heat at the moment, and I would be pretty sure that Colby Cohen is bitterly regrets what he's done, and he will rightly be punished for it, I'm sure. And
Brookwell will be the same.
Yes,
like he will. I know Cody, and he, as I've said to you, I mean, a nicer guy you couldn't wish to meet on off the ice, probably. I mean, as I said, quite a lot of Giants fans this season have been crying out for him to be that bit more physical and maybe that bit more nasty. And he's just one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's a laid-back, big surfer type dude, and you just can't anger the big guy. Well, obviously you can, but you throw a skate towards his shin or his knee. But I mean, listen, I think both guys will get a ban out of this, and rightly so. But I have to say, I just think Cohen instigated it in a very dangerous way as well. And Cody probably would be the first to say he probably let himself down. Maybe he took a whack at the offending leg, but I think it's probably the second, the follow up to that, the spear into what appeared to be the midriff that will probably get him into a spot of bother as well.
Yeah. Some other things that happened within that incident, and I suppose looking at the Vine again, is the role of Adam Keefe in there as well, because he appears to actually pin Cohen down on the ice while Brookwell spears him. Is that the impression you got from watching it, Coach?
Yeah, I was kind of actually wondering what Kiefer was doing whenever I first saw it. To be honest with you, I focused primarily on what was happening between Cohen and Brookwell as opposed to Kiefer, but I did notice that Kiefer dropped down on top of Cohen. But if I'm right in saying, I should probably review it again before saying this, but am I right in saying that Kiefer sat down almost on top of him after the offending kick? Would that be right?
It was so the kick happened. Keith jumps down on top of him, kneels on him, which sort of pins Cohen back down to the ice, and then obviously you get the whack at the leg and then the spear at the midriff. So that was sort of how it happened. Yeah.
And listen, I've said that you're going to struggle to get something bad out of me about Adam Keefe. That there's been a blossoming bromance going on one-sided, obviously, for the last 4 years. Kiefer on the whole plays the game very, very fairly. He got a bit rough and tumbly there, but it was kind of a rough and tumbly type, it was maybe a bit more rough and tumble on the Saturday night, but when guys all come together, heat of the moment, massive game and all the rest, bit of pushing and shoving. I didn't see too much wrong with what Kiefer did personally. I'm sure you guys probably see that side of it a wee bit differently.
At the time, I thought Keith's actions were worse than what they actually are. If you look at the highlights, I think if anything, Keith, could have got 2 minutes for a roughing. But then on the night, my initial surprise and sort of anger towards it was the fact that Farmer got put in the box, and I felt that Keith obviously grabbed Farmer, he pulled his helmet off and stuff. So it was initial reaction for me that if they were putting Farmer in, which I thought was for 2 minutes for roughing, and Keith's got to go in as well. But obviously the Farmer call was totally different. So I don't think it's, overly bad from Keith. It's like Coach says, he plays with that physical edge and stuff, and does play it quite fairly, on most occasions. So I think looking back at the highlights, the most I would say that Keith could have got is 2 minutes for roughing, but I'm not, overly shocked that he didn't get a call, to be honest now.
Do you know the one thing, Jono, that jumped out to me, and I know I said it to you just before we came on live there, chatting just backward and forwards with my good friends, Paddy Smith and Davy McJimsey, and it was actually Paddy that mentioned the fact that he just wondered whether or not the Panthers made a bit of a boo-boo in terms of these highlights that were released to the general public. I mean, would the Panthers, if they had analysed the incident in full, have they missed Colby Cohen's actions? I find it quite strange. I mean, as Paddy said to us on message, the Panthers could have used the wider angle, which would have clearly shown Brookwell's couple of spears at Colby Cohen, but they utilised the camera from behind the goal, kind of slowed it down a bit and what have you, and you could see things in its entirety there. I just wonder whether or not the Panthers have made a bit of a boo-boo on releasing those highlights.
I would think personally that the Giants would have cited it, or Dops would be looking at the incident. I genuinely don't think the Panthers would have released them highlights without realising what was on there. I'm sure that they will get looked at and analysed, because obviously the highlights then go out on Notts TV on their Wednesday night show. I'm sure it would have been pointed out before it was put onto the website. You're right. I mean, it could have been a mistake to put it out there. I mean, that is always a possibility, but I would struggle to believe that was the case, knowing how the Panthers organisation works. You
guys know the Panthers organisation a lot better than I, and I tend to probably agree with you, but I mean, it's just one of those things. I have to be totally honest with you. When I first looked at that, I watched the highlights this afternoon when they came out, and when I first looked at Divine, all that I was looking at really was to see what Cody was going to do, because I knew what everyone had talked about. It was only after 2 or 3 reviews that I actually noticed Colby Cohen's kick. So I don't know. I was just throwing it out there just for thought.
Well, I must admit, I watched the Vine. I watched the highlights this afternoon. Didn't notice it. I watched the Vine and didn't notice that the first time until somebody put something on Twitter, and then I looked at it again, and then you see it. So it was only when it was pointed out that I actually saw it. But I would think. I mean, looking at Brookwell's reaction, though, I would pretty sure he would have gone back into the locker room and said, "I was kicked." Or a kick was aimed at me, and I'm sure the Giants would have reviewed the DVD as they would got a copy of it, and I'm sure they would have said something to the league if that was the case.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, and I would dare say once the guys got back into the locker room, one of the first questions would have been, "What happened, big guy?" Because as I've already said, Big Cody is hard to anger, and I think most people knew that something else must have happened to kind of trigger that emotion out of the big fella.
One other incident that took place in the same fracas was Robert Farmer, who was given the game misconduct for leaving the bench to join in an altercation. And the video evidence again quite clearly shows that he didn't.
Yeah, well, I think I said on last night's podcast that I was 99.9% certain that he hadn't left the ice, so I'm afraid you can now take that 99.9 and turn it into 100%, because you clearly see him sort of skating towards the bench to obviously, take part in a line change, but then he realised what's going on, and he skates, down to support his teammates. So it's pretty clear in that one that at no point did he ever leave the bench.
Coach, you'd hope that game misconduct penalty is rescinded from his record.
No, absolutely. And in fairness, I know it's the most one-sided rivalry in the history of all sports, but even on Sunday evening, quite a few of the Giants fans who were sat up at the back of the block with ourselves all said Farmer was on the ice at the time, and couldn't believe it. And that probably, as you say, probably explains the reaction that Farmer gave as he was leaving the ice. He was absolutely bewildered. But it's hard to know with Farmer sometimes because I've seen him getting thrown out of plenty of games and not having to get exactly the same reaction from him. So and some of those are maybe more justified, but that certainly wasn't justified at all. And you definitely hope that the league rescind that one.
Okay, guys. Well, I mean, I think it was important that we had a discussion about it, seeing as all this new footage has come to light. So I want to thank you, Coach, and thank you, Aaron, for joining me.
Not a problem. Catch you soon, guys.
See you later.
Okay, thanks, and thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.